the voice of him that cried in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our preacher.
Good morning, and thank you, Nick. And thank you, Mari. And thank you, Barry. Appreciate it. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. I am Dr. Riegel, the Developmental Minister here at the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. And our church is a place where you are free to be you. No matter your race, no matter your sexual orientation, no matter your gender identity, no matter your socioeconomic status, no matter your age, no matter what have you. So bring your questioning mind, especially bring your expansive heart, bring your entire self to this beloved community. Our mission at First Church is, you'll read with me in the order of service. You all should have had that open by now. We've been doing this for like a month and a half. Our mission at First Church is to welcome all with love, to support learning and spiritual growth, to serve our wider community, and to work for justice, equity, and inclusion. Radical inclusion, all right. Now it's going to need another agenda item at the congregational meeting so that we can amend our mission to include the word radical. If you're visiting with us today, we especially welcome you. Please feel free to join us for coffee hour following the service. We would love to have a chance to get to know you at least a little bit and tell you at least a little bit about our beloved community. Our flowers today are donated by Linda Miltner in honor of Dick and Linda's 56th wedding anniversary. Wow. Also today, hopefully you all know this, the congregational meeting is today following the service. After the service ends, at whatever time it ends, we'll take about a 20-minute coffee hour, and then we'll assemble back here for our congregational meeting. And before we continue with our service, let's take a moment and let's wave to the people watching at home from YouTube, and then rise and greet our neighbors, or if you're watching from home, feel free to say hello in the chat. And when you hear the singing bowl ring, please return to your seats. Wow, I only had to do that once. What an auspicious day. Ramona Beck, would you come forward and help us light our chalice this morning? Nah, I just saw her a minute ago. She's in the back hugging. All right, if you're passing out love, you get a little leeway. Hey, girl. We're lighting our chalice this morning to the words of Kalidasa. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Trish Hart, can you come forward and share on behalf of Opening Hearts for us this morning?
Hello? Are we good? Okay. I'm Trish Hart, and I'm from the Opening Hearts team. I have some good news for you this morning. For those of you who don't know Opening Hearts, we remind members and committees to get uncomfortable with our biases so that we can open our hearts to everyone. Our good news today is about Welcoming Congregation, which is the Unitarian Universalist Association's national certification program to welcome persons of various sexual orientations and gender identities. A PowerPoint slide logo, maybe? Yeah, there we go. Thank you. At First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati, our Welcoming Congregation recertification was earned in 1993. Today, 33 years later, about 95% of UU churches hold Welcoming Congregation status. However, only half of them have earned a new annual renewal certification. Called Welcoming Congregation's 5 Practices of Renewal. It's rigorous, it's high impact, and it must be renewed every year. This week, we received the good news that the First Unitarian has earned renewal status for 2025. This is our 3rd consecutive year. Hey. Okay, we thought you'd like to hear the comments made by the Welcoming Congregation Evaluator, the director of UUA's LGBTQ+ and multicultural programs, Reverend Michael J. Crumpler. Congratulations. You have successfully completed the 5 practices of renewal for 2025. It was a pleasure to read all about, I'm getting over a cold, to read about all you have accomplished and the powerful work you have done to ensure that First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati is meeting the needs of queer and trans congregants and the wider community. Read your June newsletter for more details about the 2025 award. There are also updates about Welcoming Congregation activities in 2026 scheduled for this June and next fall. Plus, there's an invitation to join our energetic team devoted to inclusion work on LGBTQ+, anti-racism, classism, disability justice, multiculturalism, and Avondale immersion. I'm teaching OWL this afternoon, which is Our Whole Lives, for those of you who are unfamiliar with comprehensive sex ed. And I'm teaching with D. Steele. And our workshop today includes, ironically enough, sexual orientation. The previous workshop was on homophobia, biphobia, and heterosexualism. We've already covered gender roles and gender identity. So I just wanted to throw that little piece in there that we're actively doing this also with our youth. As we say every Sunday, First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati invites everyone to come as you are and bring your whole self here. Thank you for doing just that for our LGBTQ plus friends.
All right, our first hymn this morning is number 389 of the gray hymnal, if you have a hymnal. If not, the words will appear on the screen behind the pulpit and above me. Mario, let's do it 3 times. Okay, would you please stand? So today is about the Developmental Ministry Redux, which is something that was requested of me, but I also wanted to do for you, to talk about the work we have all been doing together for the last 3 years. One of the things that tends to happen with individuals and groups is that we tend to get comfortable in our set point, meaning the scoundrel we are is the scoundrel we know is the scoundrel we're okay with. And we sometimes forget the scoundrel we used to be, and we often don't think enough about the scoundrel we'd like to become. And so this is a way of looking back a little bit at the scoundrel we used to be before our developmental ministry together began, and to look at the scoundrel we've become. Because I think that we've gotten used to this set point, and it's worth looking at the trajectory of how we got from point A 3 years ago to point B, where we're at now. I'm going to share with you a reading today that you've heard before, but I don't expect you to remember, and that I tend to read. I find an excuse to read this at least once a year. And it's from Dan Hotchkiss' book, Governance and Ministry. And Dan is a congregational consultant. And his book, Governance and Ministry, is a very good book on how to run the church as an organization. And in this reading, he's talking particularly about the board. And the reason I want to share this is because I've been doing ministry a long time. I can't believe this is my 35th year. I used to sit at General Assembly when I was a puppy in the ministry, and I'd look at people on the stage with 30, 40 years experience, and I'd think to myself, oh, that old codger. That's so long off for me, and here I am. I'm one of the old codgers. And as I've done this many years of ministry, one of the things I've noticed, which is what Dan's trying to get to in this reading, is that leadership in congregations often feel that their job is to make everyone else happy. And they get a little anxious or even disgruntled when they fail to make everyone happy, because then there are rumblings in the congregation, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So a lot of time and energy on the part of leadership, especially boards of congregations, goes into the belief that we need to keep things peaceful, and we do that by keeping people happy, and the way we do that is by doing what they tell us they want us to do. And indeed, that can create a relatively peaceful system. But Dan challenges that in this reading, and so I hope after you hear it, our incoming board takes it to heart and sort of hears it as a directive to lead the congregation, not merely to respond to the congregation. And those are two very different leadership styles. So Dan writes, as a conversation starter, sometimes I ask board members to tell me what their job is. I hear a variety of answers. Someone usually says, well, we represent the members of the congregation. They elected us, and we should do what they would do. The board, in this political perspective, is like the U.S. Congress, representatives elected by the people to make laws on their behalf. The comparison is not new. In our national tradition, we the people exercise our sovereignty through representatives, and so Americans tend to assume congregations should be organized that way as well. But doing what the people who elected us would do is no simpler for a board than for a legislator. Should a board do what its constituents want, or what they would want if they understood the issues better and had spent more time thinking about long-term implications? I'm going to read that one again. For those of you who often wag your head at the decisions that boards make, they occupy a different perspective than the rest of the congregation when serving on the board. Should a board do what its constituents want, or what they would want if they understood the issues better and had spent more time thinking about long-term implications? Sometimes when I ask board members to tell me what their job is, they say, our job is to give our members what they want. This idea depicts members of the congregation as customers and the congregation as a store. This attitude is pervasive in today's church world, by the way. The customer is king, and the chief end of the congregation is to please the customer. The board's overriding motivation is to keep the congregation voting yes with both its dollars and its feet. The key metrics of success are quantitative: membership, attendance, contributions, and participation. But is this really the point of a congregation? Congregations do some of their best work when instead of giving people what they want, they teach them to want something new. Congregations do some of their best work when instead of giving people what they want, they teach them to want something new. That is leadership, folks. It is not unusual to hear a person thank a congregation for the fact that he or she now volunteers to help the needy or takes a risk for social justice. Sometimes a congregant abandons a job that's just a job at some sacrifice of income in favor of a morally significant vocation. The idea of giving members what they want fails to grasp the value of a congregation that intends to influence, not simply reflect, its members' preferences and values. Sometimes when I ask, well, what's the board's job? Someone, frequently a lawyer or a banker, uses an obscure word that speaks rather deeply to the nature of the board's role. The board is a fiduciary. So, what's a fiduciary? A fiduciary is anyone whose duty is to act in faithfulness to the interests of another, even at cost or peril to himself. A parent, for example, is a fiduciary for his or her children and must care for them, no matter how much sacrifice that might require. The board of a business corporation holds the corporate assets as fiduciary for the stockholders. A congregation's board is also a fiduciary. Its duty is to act in faithfulness to the interests of the real owner. But who owns a congregation? The owner of a congregation is not the members. The owner of a congregation is not the board. The owner of a congregation is not the staff, nor the clergy. All of these are fiduciaries whose duty it is to act in faithfulness to the interest of its real owner. Any guesses? The owner that the board must serve is the congregation's mission. The owner that the board must serve is the congregation's mission. Every decision a board makes must somehow demonstrably serve the congregation's mission. Healthy and responsible board leadership begins by recognizing that its primary measure of success is not the balance in the bank, the shortness of board meetings, or the happiness of congregants. The board's bottom line is the degree to which the congregation's mission is achieved.
Every valley, every valley shall be exalted, shall be exalted, shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill made low. And the raw places plain, the crooked straight, and raw places plain, and the raw places plain. the crooked straight, and the rough places plain.
All right, so I'm going to stay tight to my script today. Hence, you're going to be staring at a PowerPoint this morning, especially if you're watching from home. I'm going to disappear in about 1 minute. And it's going to be a PowerPoint-dependent sermon. And as I said a little bit ago, the point of this sermon is to look at the trajectory of our developmental ministry together over the course of the last 3 years. And this cannot be a comprehensive presentation of the work we've done together in 20 minutes or so. So I may have left some things out. I might even have forgotten some of the wonderful things we've accomplished. But this will give you a really good idea, and I think an important reminder of where we were and where we're at now. And my hope is that you'll leave this morning or go to coffee hour and come back to the congregational meeting feeling very good about where First Unitarian Church is a congregation these days. So if we could have the first slide, please. So the following 3 goals were set by the board during its retreat in August of 2022. That was 1 year prior to my arrival, and it was the beginning of a year without a minister. If you all who were here then remember that year. The goals that it set were to examine the church's culture and patterns of being with each other, and find ways to change the congregation's culture and constructively confront non-covenantal behaviors. To build on new bylaws by clarifying the best organizational structure. To strengthen board communication and involvement in the congregation. The following 3 goals were set by me, Dr. Riegel, upon my arrival in August of 2023. The redevelopment of the children's and adult religious education programs, work on staffing and staffing culture, and church growth. Next slide. I'm going to address each of these goals for 3-4 minutes, but first a little context. So, William Butler Yeats wrote a poem around 1920, maybe technically 1919 here, called The Second Coming. And it was actually first printed in The Dial, which was a Unitarian publication in 1920. And the poem uses Christian imagery regarding the apocalypse and the second coming to describe the atmosphere of post-war Europe. In other words, the atmosphere of Europe following World War I. And he wrote, "Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world." It was a time of existential dread. Next slide. What Yeats was writing about in post-war Europe following World War I is a very intense experience. What I'm about to say isn't nearly as intense, but it kind of parallels the chaos that Yeats was getting to in his poem. In our time, churches are facing a number of crises. These include, but are not limited to, the fact that attendance is down across the board, denomination to denomination to denomination, with only a couple of exceptions. Because we are living in an increasingly secular world where matters of the Spirit are not considered essential. Churches are facing financial pressures. Institutional commitment is waning among younger generations. So yes, membership is declining across the board for the most part. That was true before I came. It's actually been true increasingly so for a number of decades. This is not a surprise to anyone. But when I came 3 years ago, First U was facing additional challenges. The COVID pandemic and its reverb, which hit everyone. We had gone through and were still feeling the strong influence of a very intense, deep church conflict that caused significant loss in membership and significant financial strain. And these two dynamics resulted in collateral damage in the form of stress, anxiety, frustration, conflict, the loss of members, the loss of income, and questions about ministerial authority. The question of the minister was uncertain. In other words, y'all were in a tough place. Do you remember that? Do you remember what it felt like when you parked your car in the parking lot across the street and you crossed Linton Street to enter the church? What was the feeling in your gut at that time? Don't answer that right now, but just go back to those days and remember it was sometimes hard to be here, wasn't it? It was sometimes scary to be here, wasn't it? It was sometimes anxiety-provoking to be here, wasn't it? Because the church was up against so much. And so it made the decision to get a developmental minister. And the search committee recommended me to the board, and I entered the picture. Next slide. I found a congregation that was reeling, facing all the challenges I've just named, and coming out of an entire year without ministerial leadership. Worried about its reputation to the broader UU community, wondering if it was going to stay financially afloat. And I come in and I assess the situation and I start pulling levers because that's the developmental minister's job. But I tried to assure you that the change you had been through was grueling and disappointing and very hard. And there was more change coming, but it was going to be constructive and hopeful and visionary. And that was the work we were to do together. But you didn't know me from Adam. Could you trust me to lead you in this endeavor? And so I shared a poem early on in my ministry from Guillaume Apollinaire. You probably remember me. I've sang this a few times already. Come to the edge, he said. We can't. We're afraid, they responded. Come to the edge, he said. We can't. We will fall, they responded. Come to the edge, he said. So they came, and he pushed them, and they flew. and we have realized the promise of that poem. So let's take some time and just look at the work we've done together, go through those 6 goals that I talked about, one at a time. So next slide. Examine the culture and patterns of being with each other and find ways to change the congregation's culture and constructively confront non-covenantal behaviors. And this also included doing the work of the 8th principle, decentering whiteness, racial justice, the spirit of that 8th principle. So there were a couple of things already going on in this regard before I arrived, because it was a while before I arrived, even before the board set this goal, that most of the congregation knew this work needed to be done. And embedded in the bylaws, wisely embedded in the bylaws, is the Committee on Right Relations, which means it is a standing committee of the church. And it was functioning before I came. And it was doing the very work that its name entails, the Committee on Right Relations, discerning, assessing, considering, thinking about strategies for helping the members of the congregation live in right relation with one another. And it developed a covenant, and it developed a disruptive behavior policy. It was also working parallel with, and now in tandem with, the Restorative Circles group that was doing work around how to enter into dialogue with one another in difficult situations in a way that preserved relationships. This was attempted during the conflict, probably to lesser success than some would hope, but the group continued to exist and continues to exist today is one of the options for people who are struggling with relationships and want to engage others in order to resolve problems instead of lose relationships. And I brought with me what I call prescriptions for building beloved community. And that includes the introduction to the Enneagram that I taught. It includes the introduction to action science that I taught. And we now have 9 or 10 people doing what I'm calling the Enneagram Action Science Deep Dive. I hope that some of these skill sets that I've taught since my arrival have been learned well enough that they have traction after I'm gone, because these are also incredibly powerful tools for helping us stay in right relationship with each other. But also regarding that 8th principle, decentering whiteness and racial justice. The Opening Hearts group was alive and kicking when I came, and it was in the fall of my arrival that they held the LGBTQ+ weekend and celebration. I think it was in October of that year. And they have done work around discerning our place in the greater Avondale community. They have 5 pillars that they operate from to do the work of Opening Hearts, which is basically what Trish said today, becoming uncomfortable with our biases so that we can be more open to accepting those who might run against our own tendencies. That work is ongoing, and it's a very important and meaningful group in this congregation. I did several sermons on race over the course of my 3 years. I taught a deep dive into the Howard Zinn book, The People's America. What's the title? People's History of America. Thank you. And W.E.B. Du Bois. There's a lot of work going on in this congregation that lends itself to this goal, and it needs to continue. And I really want to emphasize, especially around the work about how to exist in right relation with each other, that these skill sets will fade if they're not continually cultivated. And there will come a time when you need them. I encourage you to do the best you can to continue to keep restorative circles going, to continue to keep your work in the Enneagram going, to continue to keep your work in action science going. and that will pay off in spades on the day that inevitably will come when conflict arises again. And they will be the means by which you as the container can hold the possibility of a constructive resolution to conflict next time. Okay, next slide. Build on new bylaws by clarifying best organizational structure. So, sometime after I came, we dug into the bylaws and we did some revision. The principal revision was the number of board members and how the board is constructed, but there were other revisions that we did. I'm not going to list them here because of time. But we're not done with this work yet. We're almost done with this work. So over the course of this year, we've been investigating how to do a new organizational structure. 5 years ago or so, first you had over 300 members, which meant it had the volunteer resources necessary to succeed within the organizational structure it had. Now, First U sits at 227 members, not nearly enough members for the organizational structure it has. Consequently, some committees and teams have been without leadership, and some are understaffed. When I came here, there was only one person on HR, and they were tired. Nobody was willing to take up chair of buildings and grounds. And those pressures fell on the minister. I had to do a ton of work to be the de facto committee chair because there was no committee chair. And even still, we have trouble having chairs of our committees and teams. So consequently, some committees and teams have been without leadership and some are still understaffed. So there must be a realignment of First U's organizational structure relative to its current demographics in order for us to succeed at fulfilling our mission. I was going to reveal that today, but as I was putting this together, I thought that will be way too long. So I'm going to determine, probably via a web page and some announcements, a way to present the structure we've come up with that is a realignment of our committee and team structure. All right, next slide if we could. This was a good one. So, strengthen board communications and involvement of the congregation. When I got here, I still have trouble. I said to the board, "What does this mean?" And the board looked at each other and said, "We're not so sure what this one was supposed to mean." Because it was a year ago, in August of 22, that they determined the first 3 goals I'm going through here today, and things had changed and memories had slipped. So it was a little hard wrestling this one to the ground, qualitatively what it meant. So here are the things we did to address this. Cleaning up the Google Drive. Google Drive still needs work. If you're not a tech person or you didn't study logic in college, you make your way into our Google Drive. It's a lot better than it was, but it's still not that intuitive, user-friendly. But Chris Dendy has done a lot of work to clean up our Google Drive, and I'm sure that work will continue. We've had to clarify some email rules, different things about people using bulletin board content and sending it as an announcement, or whether or not we can send an announcement about certain political events. Things needed to be cleaned up. But the biggest thing I think we've done, which has been really important and impactful, was to redesign the website and move it to a more user-friendly platform. And so we had a communications ad hoc task force to do that. And I'm not going to say who all was involved in it because I will leave some folks out. But it was a team of about 6 people. Just give them an anonymous applause. They know who they are. So if you look at our website today, you will see it is very intuitive and very user-friendly and aesthetically very pleasing. And of course, the impending reorganization that I just talked about is still coming. So that's how we decided to talk about strengthening board communications and involvement of the congregation. Next slide. Okay, halfway through. The redevelopment of the children's and adult religious education program. Give me just a second. I too am getting over Trisha's cold these days. Or she might be getting over mine, I don't know. So, when I arrived, I was told, and then I witnessed throughout the course of the first year, that our attendance, actual attendance of children, was somewhere between 3 and 5 kids on a Sunday. And that proved to be true over the course of the year. And the RE program was struggling. And so I talked with the RE director of the time, who said, yes, our program is struggling, we need some help, and we need a rebuild. And so we did that. We went and implemented a 3-year cycle of world religions, Unitarian Universalism, and the Abrahamic faiths. And we did this because I have done this in my previous 2 congregations, and we always had an influx of children when we did this. And we also instituted Children's Chapel. And that taking place today, as a matter of fact, the first and third Sundays. And so that was new to the children's program as well. And so our attendance, which was between 3 and 5 children on any given Sunday, has often exceeded 20 children since this change was implemented. And we now have, I think it's 35 children enrolled in our program. That is significant. And so I'm going to point out that that model of UU religious education is an old model because I'm long in the tooth, and that's how I learned to do it. And I continue to do it because it still works. We live in the age of the spiritual but not religious. And I hope you really hear me on this point. We are lousy at selling our goods to the greater public. We live in the age of the spiritual but not religious. And what that means isn't that people out in the greater world are hankering for, quote, UU spirituality, unquote, for their children. They don't know what that is. It's not a thought in their minds. So if that's what we want to sell, fine, but that's not what people are looking for when they come through our doors, which is one of the reasons our children's religious education programs have suffered such attrition in recent decades. What they're looking for is traditional spirituality without all the trappings of religious institutions. That's what they mean. Jesus is still important to parents raising children, or the Buddha, or Hinduism, or Sufism, or Islam, or humanism, or whatever. Those traditional world religions are still what people are talking about when they say, I'm spiritual, meaning I find value in that, but I'm not religious, meaning I don't want to give myself over to dysfunctional institutions. So we provided, through our 3-year cycle of world religions and Unitarian Universalism, we didn't throw that baby out with the bathwater, and Abrahamic faiths, that this would probably attract and maintain families. And it has. I encourage you to stay the course. You're on a growth trajectory in children's RE that should continue once you have a minister who people aren't going to look at and go, well, how long is he going to be here? I don't know if I want to sign up. Once Bridget is in the pulpit and people have faith, your minister's going to stay, this program will regain traction and you should grow continually. We now have an adult religious education team that exists and has put forth many opportunities, as you all know, from book studies to writing classes to meditation. And I want to point out here, in most churches, the only place you get spirituality is 20 minutes from the pulpit on a Sunday morning. It's hard to engage spirituality, especially in Unitarian Universalist congregations outside of Sunday morning. Adult education is a great avenue to continue to provide people the opportunity to pursue their spiritual journeys, do deeper, broader dives in ways of helping them find truth and meaning in their lives. So while the committee is up and running now, it could use a few more people. And I think you need to make sure you invest in it and keep it going, because it is also an important part of your growth edge. All right, next. Work on staffing and staffing culture. This is a little delicate, but I'm going to be frank, because I don't think you can fire me at this point. I guess the board could fire me at its meeting on the 26th. I don't know. I'm an employee of the board, and it doesn't take a vote of the congregation. So, board president, if you're listening, I came in May of 23 to meet the board and the staff. And I went home puzzled. And what I was puzzled by was how, based on the staff size and the nature of the staff that I met, this congregation managed to maintain itself as a 300-member congregation. Part of what I learned is that there was some cut down in staff, around COVID and the time of the conflict. We did have a full-time operations manager at that time, so the staff wasn't quite as small as what I experienced. But there were also troubles within the staff that existed. There was a real lack of ability to work as a team. I witnessed dishonesty, I witnessed distrust, I witnessed battles of will, and I witnessed aggressiveness and intimidation. And we had somebody stealing from the till, which we found out about mid-year. It was not a healthy staff culture. So 3 staff people have been replaced. We found 2 years ago a new full-time operations manager. Thank you, Lisa Junker. You have served us well for 2 years, though she has moved on. She was a great find. She had an accounting degree and she loved old buildings. So she did a really good job getting our operations up to speed, and she's still doing 2-3 hours a week of work for us with the accounting situation. And we got a part-time administrative assistant. Thank you, Jennifer Hurl. And we have a new acting director of children's religious education. Thank you, Dr. Amy Bottomley. And I want to point out that Amy's only going to do this for 1 more year. She's the acting director of children's religious education. So after your new minister, Bridget, arrives next year, let her get situated, and sometime around mid to late September, you'll need to have a conversation with her and the board about putting together a search committee to find a permanent director of religious education. So that is one of the challenges you face next year. It's also, you can consider it an opportunity you face next year. But the timing of that, don't wait till too late in the year to get that rolling. Put that on the board agenda in September. So last and certainly not least, I am happy to announce, for those of you who are reading ahead of me, you already know, we have a new operations manager beginning on Tuesday, May 26th. Her name is Sarah Marsh. Barbara Dickerson and I vetted over 200 applications for this job, just from Indeed. And I'll tell you that very few of those people were even qualified. It's not an easy position to fill. Barbara and I both feel very strongly that Sarah is going to be able to meet all the demands of the job. She comes with skill sets that are going to serve her and us well. There's going to be a necessity for time for a learning curve, but I think we have found another really great addition to our staff, so I'm very much looking forward to that. All right, next. Church growth. When I came, there were people flying out the door. And I think part of the reason they flew out the door was because I came. Or I would say it's because a new minister came. And it wasn't about me as a person or my style of ministry. It was just at that time, we kind of reached out and said, hey, you may want to re-engage the congregation now. We're moving in a new direction. And a lot of people who had just drifted away or weren't certain kind of saw that communication as a way of saying, I kind of need to make a decision about my relationship with the church. And we received, over the course of the next year, a lot of official resignations. At the same time, we have signed on 46 new members in the last 3 years. That's significant. That's a significant growth trajectory. And had we not lost those members who finally decided, yeah, I need to let you know I'm not really here anymore, we would be close to a 250 or 60 member congregation right now. But that trajectory, if it can be maintained, is going to put you in very good stead. And the arrival of a new minister, who I'm telling you is going to be energetic, and who I'm telling you is going to love the crap out of you, if I can say that on live YouTube on Sunday morning, is going to really interject a lot of positive energy into this congregation. And I think if you stay the course and continue the work that we've done, maintain the culture we've created, the growth trajectory is going to continue. You have a lot to look forward to. So now I want to go back for a minute to parking your car across the street, crossing Linton Street, and enter the building, for those of you who were here 3 years ago, and remember how that felt. I want to ask you what it feels like now when you park your car in the parking lot across the street, and you cross Linton Street, and you approach the building. I've been told by many, many people it feels so much more wonderful now than it did then. There's hope, and there's optimism, and there's vision, and there's contentment. We are a different place. We have created together a new culture, and that was the point of the developmental ministry. And because of that, you are indeed ready for your new minister. And I think she's going to serve you well. She's going to love you like crazy, and you better love her back, because she knows how to reach me. I'm only 5 hours away. I got to come down and get on some of you scoundrels for not loving her enough. I'll do it. All right. Let's see. Oh, yeah, one more slide. Like I said, I'm not going to remember everything, but here are some significant things that have happened that I haven't talked about yet as part of our developmental ministry, as though I haven't already demonstrated how much we have done. But here are some things to keep in mind. We had an aesthetics team that did a ton of work to spruce us up, which basically now is the buildings and grounds team. Thank you very much, Jan. Okay. I'm remiss not to say and cohorts, because she doesn't do it alone. So thank you very much, buildings and grounds team. Again, thank you, Communications Task Force, for the website. That was at least an entire year of hard work on the part of about 6 people. Our Canvas team, bar none, is awesome. I have served, if you include my 1-year stint in Connecticut, 5 different churches. I have never seen a Canvas run as well as you all run a Canvas. Our Canvas team does a great job. When I talked about the conflict and the loss of people and the loss of money, about $60,000, I believe, I've been informed correctly, walked out the door. By the time of the 2nd year of our developmental ministry together, that Canvas team had replaced that $60,000. And this year, we hit a 7% increase. That is an efficient, effective Canvas team. And it's a lot of hard work that goes on under the radar. I think they deserve some applause. All of our committees and teams and our hardworking volunteers have been indispensable to this developmental ministry. When people ask me, what was it like serving that church? I tell them, it was the first cooperative, co-creative ministry I've ever had. Not better than any other cooperative, co-creative ministry I've had. The only cooperative, co-creative ministry I've had. And when I applied for the job where I'm going next, they said to me, why do you think the work down in Cincinnati was so successful? And I said to them, because it was a cooperative, co-creative ministry. And they said, wow, that's exactly what we're hoping for. So you all have lit my fire, and you all have done it by working cooperatively and co-creatively with me. We have done a ton of work, and it was about all of us. So if you've gone unmentioned today, you're not unrecognized. Hey, we have installed Mary Tarbell Green as our Assistant Minister for Pastoral Care. I got to tell you, I love doing pastoral care with people, but oh my God, was there a ton of work to do when I arrived here. I would not have had the bandwidth to do it well, so you have been indispensable, Mary. Thank you for your service. And is Sharon here today? Sharon Dittmar. We voted Sharon Dittmar as our Minister Emerita. So where'd she go? Oh, she's an RE. Shout really loud. All right, one more slide, and then we'll move on. So hopefully I have demonstrated to you how much work we have done over the last 3 years, which I imagine you've forgotten much of, because we've gotten used to this set point. You are a healthy congregation. Not perfect, but you are healthy. You have a lot to offer. You are dedicated and intelligent and wise and committed. And I tell people who ask me, how do you really know you've done a good job ministering to a church? And I tell them, if I walk out of the church building and I cross the street and I get hit by a Pepsi truck and they can go on without me without missing a beat, I've done a good job. That's you. That's you. So I want you leaving this moment recognizing how different you are now from where you were then, and that you are an amazing group of people, you are a wonderful congregation, and you have an incredibly bright future. But you have to continue to have faith. And this is Rumi's way of talking about faith. The way of love is not a subtle argument. The door there is devastation. Birds make great sky circles of their freedom. How do they learn it? They fall, and falling, they are given wings. I guarantee you that if you step out in faith, you will be given wings. Somebody shout out, what's our last hymn this morning? We'll Build a Land, 121, if I remember correctly. Please turn to it as you are able, or rise and see the words on the screen behind me. All right, now be seated. Ramona Beck, would you come extinguish our chalice? Come on, girl, come extinguish our chalice. Yeah. I know you're lost in the spirit. It's okay if I have to call you twice. All right. Don't get her started because it's already 10 after the hour. We got to go out into the highways and byways and give the people something of your new vision. You may possess a small light, but uncover it and let it shine. Use it to bring more understanding to the hearts and minds of men and women. Give them not hell, but give them hope and give them courage. Do not push them deeper into their despair, but preach the kindness and everlasting love of God. Blessed be. Come back in 20 minutes for the congregational meeting.